Irish Autism Action is an umbrella organisation put together basically originally by parents of children with autism, and it would support all the schools around the country that give the appropriate intervention and education to children with autism. There's 12 schools at the moment under the umbrella of Irish Autism Action, but it doesn't stop there. Irish Autism Action tries their best to put facilities in place for children and families that are affected by autism. Respite for adults, work placement for adults, obviously the education, then with support for the families. We do everything even down to comfort funds, where we might have children, maybe some families might have one, maybe two children with autism in the family, and in that situation a lot of the children, because of the ignorance surrounding autism, initially these kids can be expelled and taken away from activity because of inappropriate behaviour due to autism, but unfortunately that can be, misconstrued as to bad behaviour in general. And that's why we try to create as much awareness as we do, to try and educate people on autism, to let them know that these children are not naughty kids, they just have autism. Our journey has been a long journey now. We've been over 10 years kind of fighting the cause, and the reason for that is my own little girl Mia was diagnosed with autism about 11 and a half years ago. She's 13 now. Back then it was a very dark place because there was not many services available to us, plus the fact the ignorance surrounding autism, including ourselves. We didn't really know what autism was. We had to go and educate ourselves on autism, find out where our daughter was on the spectrum, try and figure out how we could help her, what we needed to do to try and help her to improve her future. And basically what she needed was, at the time she was non-verbal, so she didn't speak. She was quite isolated in her own world. It was very, very, very upsetting because, when the mammy and baby are sent home from hospital and the doctor says mammy and baby doing well, and then like 16 months, 17 months later you realise that your daughter might have some sort of a significant problem. Initially we thought she was deaf, which is common for children with autism to kind of come across like that. The parents kind of just think they're not responding because they're deaf. Having had the hearing test done and realising that her hearing was perfect, we knew there was a more significant problem. The diagnosis then was impossible to get. There was a 2.5-year waiting list for a diagnosis through the state. Anybody you speak to will tell you that early intervention with children with autism is essential for their future. But how can you have early intervention if you're on a 2.5-year waiting list for a diagnosis? So we were lucky to manage to get a diagnosis done ourselves. Once we had a diagnosis, we went on then to try and find out what she needed, and what she needed then was basically tailored education. We needed to make sure that we were putting in place the appropriate education that she needed for her specific needs. Every child with autism is completely different. It manifests itself in children completely differently. Like every human being is different, every child with autism is different. So applied behaviour analysis, ABA, a form of education that was developed over in America in the New England Centre in Massachusetts. They've over 35-40 years of experience with behaviour analysis, and this form of education is really, really, really successful with children with autism. It can change their lives, and my daughter Mia was very fortunate to have 5 years of intensive intervention in the form of ABA, not specifically only ABA, but a couple of hours a day of ABA, and that really, really worked with her. We just worked really, really hard, and Mia worked very, very hard, and every time we raised the bar she reached it. And the happy ending to the story now would be that she's in mainstream school now 5 years. She's 13 now. She's recently just started in second year school in peer equal school. So I mean, she's in the classroom with all girls the same age as herself. Academically she's flying. She's doing very, very well, which is something that we never would have realised had she not have been given the appropriate intervention. Because what the appropriate intervention does is it gives the child with autism the ability to be able to learn in an ordinary setting. The best advice as a parent I can give to another parent that maybe be worried about their child with autism is, you have to take one step at a time, every day at a time. The most important lesson really, or the most important bit of advice I could give is whatever keeps the child happy is to keep that in place. Make sure the child is always happy within themselves. Whatever the problems are surrounding that, we can deal with that one at a time. There are ways and means of treating every disability that the child might possess, and there's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. The education that's gone into the country now about autism is huge. There's people out there, psychologists, speech and language therapists, that have dealt with people before you've come along, and they're quite ready and waiting for your child. And there are tough times, there are dark days, but there's a very, very bright future for all of them.